What's up, Fort Knox? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, Riley Knox. I am so happy to see you guys today. I thought I'd just pop in because today just happens to be a very special day for me. It is actually what I call my tranaversary. It is the 16th, it's my sweet 16 years I'm celebrating since my transition, since I've decided to go through with transitioning into my true self. You guys know that I'm transgender. If you don't know that already, welcome to the channel. I'm so happy that I have been able to sustain these 16 years and survive so much. You guys know I've talked about on my channel my transition before, and I thought, like I could just come on here and talk about it some more, but I wanted to share something with you guys that I did last year. A lot of you know that Monique Samuels is one of my closest friends, and last year I did her podcast, her live podcast in front of an audience, her Not for Lazy Moms, and I spoke about my transition. She wanted me to come on and talk to people about what it was like in the beginning. She and I have talked about it here on my channel, and also I've talked about my transition in other videos, which I'll tag below. But I just wanted to share this with you guys. The quality's not that great because someone was filming it for me and from far away and turned it the vertical way and whatever, but the message is there, and I wanted you guys to just hear about, some words of wisdom that I have learned along the way, and I thought, well, that would be the perfect way for me to celebrate with you guys my traniversary. I'm so happy to have my testimony and to have gone through what I've gone through and come out of it so living my truth and just being happy. I'll talk more about it maybe in a further video, but I've talked about it a lot in other videos. So if you have not checked those videos out, make sure that you check out those videos. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel and enjoy this video that was done, I think, in November of last year or December, one of the two, of last year, before the pandemic. And yeah, enjoy. I love you guys for watching. Bye.
She jinxed herself by saying that. Home Depot is her favorite store to go shopping in or get lost in, which is awesome because my bathroom needs to be redecorated, so I'm glad I know you. And apparently when she's at home alone, she makes the kind of songs that are so nasty, yes, Little Kim would blush. Yes. Riley Knox, please come to the Knoxx live stage. That walk is everything, sis.
Right?
Listen.
Are you gonna do a little routine for us?
I know y'all didn't think I was about to dance. No, this dress is too tight, these heels are too high. No dance.
Listen, Riley, remember you used to be like trying to teach me to dance?
No, remember when Single Ladies came out, we were in your kitchen or your living room trying to learn.
Trying to do it. We were actually watching it.
And you had it. You had it like instantly.
I was like,
that's
look,
what
I was trying to get this one signals. I'm like,
yeah. Oh, you want to do Single Ladies? I can't do the dance. Okay.
Yes, but all right, so I know y'all probably looking at us like we're crazy right now. Riley is one of the first people I met when I moved to DC. I was 19 years old. And that year, you know what's crazy? That year I met a lot of great people because that was the year I met Chris. I met Chris when I was 19. I met Riley when I was 19. And I was able to witness her entire transformation. Can I say what I'm saying?
Of course you can say.
Okay. When I first met Riley was Ricardo. And to the point where, I mean, we would hang out all the time. Riley used to do my makeup. And when Ricardo came to me and said, listen, I'm about to go through this transformation. To the point where, I mean, names, you were running names by me. Yes. I'm going to change my name. She came up with Riley. And I was like, okay, that's great. And she started dressing and looking like how she looks right now. And we would be in Home Goods. We'd be in Home Goods or we'd be in Home Depot because we always did handy stuff together. And looking like a full-blown Beyonce. And I'm like, Ricardo. I'm like, you can't say
like, you can't say that.
And I was like, but you know what I love about Riley? I said, Riley, be patient with me, because while you're going through this transition, I'm going through it with you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around. Like, I'm bad with names. If somebody introduces me as whatever your name is, and then you decide to change your name, it's hard for me to register the difference. Like, we have a friend back there, Markeisha, and Chris introduced her to me, and she's from Alabama. He introduces me.
Don't take no shots at Alabama.
No, I wasn't taking a shot. So Chris introduced me to Markeisha as Lucy. That's what they call her back home. So one day, Leaf comes up to me and she's like, "Oh, your friend reached out to me and wants me to redecorate her house." And I was like, "Oh, who?" Markeisha. I'm like, "Who the heck is that?" Markeisha. And so it's kind of hard sometimes to really like change the name once you know somebody or something. So I was like, "Look, if I say Ricardo, I said, I'm trying to go through this with you." And she was very patient with me.
And I said to you recently, like, I now have to call you Monique, but I'm still used to calling you Hazel. I was like, sounds familiar. I have to get used to a new name. You got to get used to it too. So
yes, but I'm so happy you're here today because, and I'm going to make sure that I speak so that y'all are understanding where we're coming from, because I've known Riley for so long that I don't want to skip over some things and y'all like, wait, I'm missing part of the story. So I just want to start out by asking you, because I've seen everything. Yeah. It's like, where did you find the courage to make the transition you made and to be where you are right now?
I always knew it was going to happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen. When I was a kid, I've told the story in interviews before, some of you might have heard it, that I used to run around with a flashlight in my hand, holding, pretending it was a microphone, and I always knew that I was going to be an entertainer. But I also always knew that I was going to be a girl. I used to have a pillowcase on my head, pretending it was long hair, and always knew that I wanted to be a girl. Didn't know how it was going to happen. My sister's here today. She could attest to that. And I just, I came to DC and I felt like, I was exposed to so many people that were like me, and I didn't know anybody that was like me, before growing up. We're talking 15 years ago. I've transitioned about 15 years ago. There was no one on TV, there was no Pose, there was no Janet Mock or Laverne Cox on TV. So I basically had no role model to look up to. And honestly, where I got the courage from my transition, and I never really told you this, was really you. Wow. And it's crazy simply because you used to always say to me, just be yourself, like be authentic. And you used to always say to me, stop letting people use you. And I just, figured, I think I started dressing before I started telling everybody, because I didn't want anybody to talk me out of it. Say, "Oh, is that you sure that's what you want to do?" Like, yeah. You should, and you were supportive from day one. It took you a while with the names, but you were in pronouns, but you were supportive from day one. I thank you for that. But having a friend or having an ally, somebody that, might not have completely understood what it was, but was just supportive, that was a big thing for me. And that just encouraged me to just love myself. I say this all the time. I had people in my life who loved me before I knew how to love myself. Yeah. So that was a big deal.
I remember times where I would literally be like, I would put myself in your shoes and I'm like, you should not be anybody's little secret. Like, you're a beautiful person inside and out.
So I had so many guys that wanted me to be their dirty little secret, that wanted to see me, didn't want to see me in the light of day, but always wanted to see me, in my apartment. Guys have fallen in love with me, but because of what their friends or family might think, or I can't have their kid, would, break up with me or just wanted me to be their secret. And used to always say to me, like, love yourself enough to not have somebody, not to be somebody's secret, and stop letting people use you in that way.
Yes.
I want to know, was there a specific moment you can look back on and where you thought to yourself, maybe it was when you were performing on stage or maybe just by yourself and you're just doing some self-reflection, a certain moment where you realized, I do love myself, I'm proud of myself, I am Riley Knoxx, this is who I am?
I don't know if it was an exact moment. I will say performing definitely broke me out of my shell. I used to be very shy, I think, and also because I started performing before I transitioned. And so I was dressing up as Beyonce before I transitioned. So it just became a little bit easier to just do it every day. Like, it wasn't
it wasn't like a big departure. It wasn't like I was like a truck driver, and then all of a sudden, you know, everybody said, "Oh, so now you're going to become a girl?" Like, but and I was always very feminine, very like I was the gay best friend, I guess, you know, like that. And I don't know if there was an exact moment that I just kind of thought like, you know, I'm so confident I'm Riley Knoxx. I still don't think of myself that way.
What was your, I know we talked about this in private, but what was your overall defining moment? That moment where it was like, whoa, I really need to get myself where I need to be, and I'm not there yet.
So I went through, so there was 2 defining moments. I just spoke about the first one, is transitioning. The second moment was at 28 years old, I got diagnosed with meningitis. Now, I have a nephew who died of meningitis at 2 years old. And so when my family hears meningitis, like we panic, you know, because of what happened to my nephew. And so throughout that whole year, like so many things were happening to me. There was a lot of loss and friendships and relationships. And before that, I was living a reckless life. I was basically, because I had gotten so much attention from so many guys, and you know, and it just felt, my esteem was based on how men saw me. So they saw this woman and they were attracted to this woman, and it made me feel like, oh, I have arrived, I'm this girl, like, you know, whatever. And it caused me to do some reckless things, like sleeping with men and not telling them that I was transgender, even though I could have had my neck chopped off. And I had a man who almost tried to kill me, and I've told the story before, we've talked about this before, but Monique saved my life. And without even knowing that she was doing it, the guy was at my house. He had a very distinct name, and she called me, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And she's just like, hey, girl, what are you doing? I was like, oh, Curleaf is here, and she's like, oh, well, if you have company, then call me back. So when it got to the point where I told the guy that I was transgender, he's like, the only reason I'm not killing you is because your friend called and you told her my name. And I cannot explain this to anybody. But this is too embarrassing to me. So all these things, like reckless things, I'm not proud of that, but I say it now because you have to understand where I was in my life. I was almost like an adolescent. And I know sometimes that might have been even hard for you to understand because, you know, I was, you know, 24 years old, around in my 20s, but still I was going through an adolescence. I was going through something that, where I'm this new person and I'm getting all this new attention. And my value was based on how other people saw me, especially men. Because then that validated me as a woman to me in my head. Crazy, but that's really what it was. And it wasn't until I was in the hospital there with meningitis, almost dying, and had to be there for a whole month. And the last week that I was there, I made a promise to God. I said, if you pull me through this, what I'm going through right now, if you pull me through this, if you give me that second chance, I will live my life every single day to be worthy of that second chance. I will live my life out loud and on purpose. All the things you guys see me do now on TV or on stage and all that stuff, all that is a direct result of that promise I made to God. And it was a Kanye West interview that I saw with Oprah, and he said that you can always tell someone who's almost died, because that changes your life. It's like death is the end all be all. So if you've almost tasted death, then it causes you to become fearless. Like now I'm not scared of anything. I'm not scared to try something, to do things. I live my life every day out loud and on purpose to be worthy of that second chance that I prayed for. I got that gift to live again, to do it all over again. And it really changed everything for me, because then I started to see my self-worth. I started to love myself. I started to really understand that my worth was not based on how the world saw me, you know, whether I was an entertainer and all these people. See, what would happen to me is I'd have all these people in the audience screaming my name and saying how much they love me in meet and greets, and then I'd go home and I'd be alone with men who never wanted to be seen with me in the light of day. So imagine the juxtaposition. And so that was just a crazy thing for me before. Now, there's not a person on earth that would have me, like I love myself way too much to just be your secret. That's crazy to me. Like, how the hell can you? And it's so funny that I meet somebody now that's just like, you know, oh, I don't want to be seen. I'm like, are you kidding me? There are people that just paid to see me. Are you crazy? You want to see me? Okay, fine, bye. You know, I can never, but I always say this. Your self-esteem and how you see yourself determines every single thing that you do in life. It determines how you see yourself, how you treat other people. We always talk about like trolls on Instagram, and we talk about like people hating and all this stuff. You never see a really happy person or somebody that loves themselves so much hating on somebody or trolling somebody.
Preach.
Simply because when you love yourself enough, you're not doing that to other people. You're not, misery loves company, but only if that company's miserable too, right?
Yes.
So I definitely love myself in a way now that I never thought possible. I never thought possible when we were friends up there.
It's so crazy how you can have people who watch you who can see, literally, they can see your future almost. And what Riley is, how she's loving herself now, I saw that so many years ago. Like, I'm like, she has a great heart. Like, she has a big heart. She wants the best for everybody. And that's rare. You know, so I'm like, I came to Riley's show, which was actually here earlier this year. And that was our first time really seeing each other. And I'm sitting in the audience watching this packed out show, and she's on stage performing. And I'm like, wow, this is just a full circle moment.
That was a big moment because you've been there before when there was just like as many people are on the stage in the audience. So
yeah, no, I remember one of your first shows, and the first show I went to, you were performing Single Ladies. Yeah, and it was in a much smaller venue. It was like a much smaller audience, and you were doing it the same way that you do it even now, like with so much just like confidence. And you know, it's a beautiful thing to see when you can watch somebody's journey and all of the things that have come from that, being in Taylor Swift's video, being on stage with her at the VMAs. She was just on Watch What Happens Live. Like, she's all over doing her thing, and I always saw that. And I'm still waiting for that book, because I told you years ago you need to write a book. Yes. So yes, I'm waiting to see everything. But I'm so proud of you, and I appreciate you sharing your story. Did y'all have any other questions from the panel? Y'all good?
What advice would you give to someone who feels like, you know, they're lost and they don't really know who they are? You know, they're still trying to figure everything out.
For me, my friends were a very big part of that. I was estranged from my family for a while, and so my friends became my family, and they really helped and supported me. You find somebody, if you just find one person that supports you, that's so big. That was huge for me. And it's so funny that I'm sitting here beside you, because you lent him to me once. He called me on the phone. This is my first time ever meeting him in person, but years ago, we had a phone conversation. I was very depressed, and Monique had him call me, and we sat and we talked, and I remember a very specific conversation where we were talking about, and I never forgot this, is I was like, you know, well, I mean, I know you're a pastor and, you know, what, all this stuff, but, you know, I'm a little different, and, you know, most religious people aren't really in agreement with what I am. And he said to me, don't worry about people who are religious. Surround yourself with people who are righteous, because religious people sometimes will tend to judge you, but righteous people will lift you up. And I really appreciate you for that. I never forgot that.
Yeah. So, Ronnie, where you at with your family and everything now?
My sister's here today. Yeah. My mom, we talk almost every day, and she's so proud. She's sitting at the concerts with her big Galaxy Note, filming me, telling everybody, this is my daughter here, look what she does. Sister, she's got that light on. So it was, you know, once I learned to love myself, and you know, I gotta say this, you are the first example of how the world is supposed to love you. Loving yourself is a template for how you let other people treat you, how other people love you. So you gotta start with loving yourself first, because that will dictate how everybody in the world moves around you. No one's gonna try to treat you like shit if they see that you're not someone who carries yourself like someone who's worthy of being treated like shit.
Yes. That's awesome. No, I appreciate that.